Hello, everyone, and welcome back to round number 2. We are live here from the Oceania Regionals in Brisbane, and we are looking at some spicy round 2 magic here, Ryan. And this, I'm not talking about the Ryan on the right-hand side. I'm talking about Ryan, my partner, on the commentary today. We got Ivankov taking on starter deck Kaido with the Kaido sleeves. This man's going full Kaido, and I am all for. He's even got the purple. He's even got the purple wristband. This guy just loves purple. Ivankov's got the blue sleeves. You know, we're playing in theme today. What do you think about this one, Ryan? What's your instant takeaway from this?
Blue is obviously extremely defensive and wants to counter out of all of these attacks, you know, to keep that hand size low. On the other hand, Kaido has all of these really buffed up attackers. You know, you're not necessarily swinging for 5k, so it might be enough to just push this damage through still, but also you've just got the inherent burn on the Kaido, which we've seen since the starter deck came out. It can just be a game ender in on itself.
That's what I'm interested in.
But it's nice to get something that's not red.
Well, I mean, you know, this is the beauty of streaming these tables. How am I going to put it? In the earlier rounds, right? Because you get to see so much variety. We might not constantly see red v red. Like now we're going to get blue versus purple, and we already had red v green. So we're seeing all 4 colors so far. On this stream, and I kind of can't wait. I mean, I used to play Kaido quite a fair bit. I've seen the changes that Kaido does get now. You know, with the impel down package. I'm not the biggest fan. Don't get me wrong. Like I think it still has its place, but I don't see it as strong and as dominant as what it was in set 1. And I've seen Ivankov as well. Like maybe I just didn't play like a tuned deck. Obviously, Ivankov was in our top 16 last regional, but I haven't really seen it really pop off or like, you know, be so consistent that it's like a top defining deck, right? Like I understand that like it's a lot of RNG because you dump your hand and then you kind of draw 2 random cards. But it's not to the point where I feel like, you know, the consistency is there where like it can really bring itself up to the top.
Yeah, and when this deck does pop off and you're able to establish multiple 7Ks on the field, it can be extremely oppressive at just kind of locking you out of really doing anything. But it is kind of that little dance of being able to manage such a low hand size in a game that, you know, relies solely on cards to counter out and cards to place on the field to attack.
And it looked
but both of these decks take a bit of time to set up as well. So
absolutely.
We'll definitely see this kind of later on into the game as opposed to some other decks.
And the thing is with Ryan playing Kaido, the worst feeling is, and the problem with Kaido as well that I obviously found when I was playing it, if you don't see your Onigashima Island, it makes it very, very hard for you to recover later on. It's not impossible, but it's a step. It is a very big hurdle that you got to jump through. That's the thing now. And obviously Kaido already dropping down the 2-cost blocker, George being able to just swing with lead, and Ryan opting not to use that blocker this early. And you don't really use these blockers early. You want to make sure that you use them at the crucial times, right before you're going to drop your big bodies. And Ryan's thinking a lot here, and that means he doesn't have Onigashima Island. And there you go. He's attaching 2 to leader and swinging for 7.
And you do get so much value off that field card as well. And just a flat-out pass there.
It's going to be interesting because, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Ivankov. I mean, I could be definitely proven wrong here to see its absolute like ability to kind of go wide and go hard. Ryan on the other side, not seeing the island is kind of like almost to me, kind of almost putting himself like on a platter here now for George, right? Like he's then able to to start his combos now. So he's been able to play the buggy. That's going to be able to look at the top 5. I think that's buggy, right? I can't actually. Yeah, it is buggy.
Yep. Yeah.
Off the effect of.
Yeah. Buggy. It does allow you to kind of swing into some of these lower cost cards, but Kaido doesn't generally play any anyway.
More just a search.
I believe it's Mr. 3. Yeah. Yeah, I believe it's Mr. 3 on the left of it, which does have blocker, if it's the one I'm thinking of. And at the end of the turn, you can pitch a card to restand it.
And now Ryan,
these low cost blockers.
It's okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say these low-cost blockers don't really provide a lot of value later on into the game against blue because it has so many ways to bounce them back to hand.
Absolutely agree. And I was about to say that Ryan is taking his sweet time thinking about what he's going to do on this turn, which means that he hasn't seen it. He has not seen Island because the first thing that you do as a blue player, as soon as you see Island, you almost don't even reset. You just literally slap it straight down and then instantly turn it to the side. Okay, never mind. This guy's just baiting me. I was just going to say, like, you just slap it, you turn it, you grab the Don. And I mean, it is one turn behind. So not the biggest feels bad, but you saw on the second turn for Ryan, he had nothing to play and he added the 2 Don to his leader, which majority of the time you could add 1 Don and then play the Island and then you feel comfortable about your turn 2, right?
Yeah, of course. Perhaps he just wanted to guarantee the damage going through, and prevent kind of George from countering out, I suppose. A 6K swing is easy to counter out for George and pushes his game plan forward as opposed to, I guess, a 7K or 8K attack where you're pitching your whole hand early. Looks to be a trigger off the life.
Yeah, definitely was, but I think he's just opting not to play it. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been Hell's Judgment, a card that you definitely run 4 of in any purple deck these days. It allows you to give minus 3,000 to... if the trigger is if your opponent has 6 or more Don cards, they return 1 Don card to their Don deck. And in this position, George definitely does have 6 Don, opted not to trigger it. I think the counter is so strong, being able to neg 2 things, 3,000 power for 2. And then minus 1 Don. I think it's a much stronger thing. And there you go. You got the Ivankov Luffy combo. George has managed to see it, and now his hand size is going to dwindle, but that's exactly where he wants to be.
Yep. And he's just deciding to pass, not resolve the trigger of the Mr. 3. So he's happy to leave that in rest mode. He obviously wants to keep the 2 cards in hand as they are.
3.
Yeah, he has 3?
Yeah, he had 3. Yep. But yeah, that's the thing. I think in this situation, if you're not going down to 0, there's no real point for you to start chipping away at your own hand, right? Like you want either go down to 0 and then draw 2, or just keep what you have, because dropping 3 cards for the sake of drawing a random 2 is probably not worth it at this point for George.
Yeah, and keeping the Mr. 3 in rest mode can act as a blocker in some situations as well. If he wants to attack into it, George would be more than comfortable with that as well. And if he wants to attack in life, well, George is probably comfortable with that also. So kind of a win-win situation. You keep the card in hand and you're still comfortable with every situation. Huge hand size for Ryan.
Absolutely. And it's because he hasn't really played much, has he, right? He ended up playing the Island. He's obviously swings with lead. He attaches a Don here and there, played a blocker on turn 1. Now he's got the Queen, which allows him to draw 2 and get rid of 1. But he's kind of... This is what, I guess, Kaido lacked in set 1, right? The ability to draw a lot of cards. Obviously, that does fix a little bit with some of the searches that are available now, coming from set 2.
Oh, it's going to be punishing. Yeah.
And there goes the Queen. And nothing feels worse than, dropping down a big body blocker that will maybe get you through a turn or 2. And man, George's board is looking really, really insane right now.
Yeah. And a big problem that you have now is that you've got a lot of these 7K and above swings that can put pressure on your life or pressure on anything that you play on the field. Uh, and if you can't find a way to clear this field with with still a higher life total, yeah, you're in a bit of a rough time.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, we're looking at obviously Ryan has just now opted to use the Hell's Judgment, which is going to be able to chip a little bit off of some of these cards that George is looking at, and he's still going to be able to opt to swing with the Luffy, discarding 2.
Yeah, this is a double attack.
Yeah, and it is such a feels bad. Yeah, now Ryan has to get rid of the blockers and the Sadi as well. So he is running the input down package. I think that's the only way to really run it these days anyway. But just chipping down at Ryan's hand now is one of those things where it's like,
yeah. If you don't have a 10-drop Kaido here, then
he did pick him all up and then brought shot back down. I thought he was ready to do so, but no, swinging into lead.
Yeah,
there it is. Yeah, perfect. And this is one of those things where I'm not the biggest fan of 10-drop Kaido. I never was in set 1, and I'm not really in set 2. But the board presence that you get now from Whitebeard and now we're looking at Ivankov, and Law is still floating around, and Zoro as well. It actually in this position that Ryan's in, because he's got 3 life still. It is a perfectly acceptable opportunity to drop down the 10-drop Kaido, because you're not feeling like you're going to lose on the next turn because you dropped it down, which is what you felt like in OP1. By the time you got the 10-drop Kaido, you were already on 1 life or possibly 0 by the time you got to drop this out. But now, because the deck has so many more 2Ks, it has a lot more blockers. It allows you to really be able to drop this 10-drop down without feeling like you instantly lose the game next turn.
Yeah, that was a very comfortable position to play it in. And you're comfortable with this. A 5-drop skillless Croc comes down, which can put pressure on the following turn. That's no worries. And
I think he played the Inazuma as well, which is a blocker. That gets an extra 2k power if he has 1 or less cards in hand, and it fits perfectly into this Ivankov deck.
Yeah. But you're still comfortable with the position you're in for purple, and this is the kind of value that you get for the island as well. You -6 off the 10-drop, and you immediately go back to 5. Yep. And once it goes back to your turn, you're at 7. It's more than a comfortable amount of Don.
8.
Yeah.
And that's the thing now, yeah. So, like, Ryan being able to recover, didn't see the island on curve, doesn't really seem to make that much of a difference, which is amazing for him. Being able to pretty much wipe George's ideal board situation, I would say, right? He had the Ivankov, he had the Luffy, he had the Mihawk out as well, and just literally looked so comfortable having all the bodies on the field and being able to deal with Ryan in the earlier game. And yeah, it's amazing what one card can really do, right? Like, obviously, they are meta-defining and they are deck-defining at this point. Even the Whitebeard SR, if we take another one that's a high-cost, high-reward card, it's just crazy how it can really change the whole perspective of the game by being dropped down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that game, that Kaido just represents a almost guaranteed damage also. It's a 12k that's so difficult to get out of for most decks. Finds the king to remove the blocker as well. And just a leader swing. Yep. We could see a burn here.
Oh, he is going to, yeah. So he's -7, and now he's going to swing with his 10-drop Kaido.
Yeah, and
he's just shaking the hand. He's just like, I can't do anything, man. Well done. And that is Kaido taking out round them. Absolutely. Knew his strengths. Knew when he was at his weakest. Was able to play the 10-drop Kaido again, even with the island. Playing that a turn later, still felt like he had everything ready to go for himself, and just absolutely played that to perfection. Again, no credit taken away from the Ivankov player. Once you either set up your board and you anticipate the 10-drop, or you don't set up your board, and then you're in a worse position anyway, right? Like, there's no middle ground where it's like, okay, I have to play differently against Kaido because Ivankov really has that one method of play where it's like, I'm going to play my SI Ivankov, I'm going to play the Luffy off it, and then my board is going to be about 3 or 4 battle, cards anyway. And that's where I literally want to be. So,
Yeah, and George played it as best as he could. Also, it was the right situation to play the Mihawk and establish that big body. You already had the Luffy, you already had the Ivankov, and you were successfully able to clear Ryan's board. Had that 10 drop Kaido not come down, you would have been in a very comfortable position to put pressure on the following turn. But it was just the one card that could change the game, and Ryan just happened to have it.
I mean, yeah, absolutely right, and that's where a lot of these, I guess, these decks thrive off, right? Like, that one card that you need to see pending matchup and stuff like that. We obviously don't know how many Ryan is running, but it's the same thing with the Onigashima Island. That card needs to be seen to make the deck actually start functioning correctly, and obviously get it online quicker. And George not really being able to kind of dump his hand and then be able to draw the 2 cards up. I'm not sure if it really would have helped him, but it always is handy being able to use your leader's effect to its maximum value, right? We have seen it multiple times where that is probably why a lot of these red decks are so dominant now, because with Zoro, you just put one Don underneath your leader and all of a sudden its effect is online. And then we speak about Whitebeard, and then it's the exact same thing. It's like automatically you get 6k health power, and then you take your own life at the end of the turn. So these are online from pretty much the get-go. There's no real large
hoops to jump through.
Yeah, exactly. And
so you see that with kind of Kid and just how inherent that ability is on Kid and Red Luffy, to some extent Doffy as well. These strong effects tied in with the leader, that can be activated from as early as the second turn. It just provides a lot of value throughout the entire game.
Well, yeah, guys, that is going to be it from myself and Ryan. Round 2, obviously going a bit quicker. I didn't actually. I would have thought a purple and blue deck might have gone a little bit longer than like a red match, but it's funny enough, sometimes when you just don't see a card or the matchup really does not favor you, it can go really, really quickly. So that actually took us, about 15, 20 minutes or so, but it looks like we have another 20 or so minutes before we get into round number 3, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've just joined in, there is still plenty of games to still come. We are going to be jumping into round number 3 in a little bit of time. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that follow button on Twitch to be notified when we go live with other regionals or any other One Piece events. And all VODs will be on the TAC Games YouTube channel. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. My name's Umit. I'm joined here by Ryan from Double Sleep, and we will be back very shortly for round number 3.